I really like the idea of blending kind of acoustic instruments and like live performance. And I like the idea of trying to blend that somehow with 8-bit kind of inspired, but more like of a retro game sound for video games. And I think that's really fun. So that's kind of what I did. And this one is kind of spaced theme-esque, I guess you could say. And it's called By the Starlight. I wrote it for Celeste, in quotations, but really fixed media keyboard. You could play it live, but it would be very difficult in my opinion. But I'm not a piano player, so someone else can verify whether it's playable or not. But I really wrote it more for fixed media part, and then I wrote it for alto flute, and I recorded the alto flute as well. And I also recorded some C flute to give some different timbres, and I overdubbed that sound. So I wrote the alto flute part, and then I picked specific points of where I would like to hear a different, like more brighter timbre, and I kind of mixed it in very low to the flute sound, so it kind of blends and gives a more of a color and brightness to the sound, um, instead of just being alto flute. So I did that with the C flute. I also did some separate recordings and improvisations. Just after I wrote everything and recorded everything, I took my regular C flute and I did some over recordings and improvised and kind of cut and spliced those up into different parts where I felt like it needed something more. Um, and also, I mean, we see in the score, like I only wrote out the like kind of keyboard part that might be played, and then there's the alto flute part. But I also wanted to add some pad sounds, so we have some of those where I've labeled it space pad, and I kind of wanted it to feel kind of expansive, kind of like a movie soundtrack at first, and then I just kind of improvised and kind of recorded it as I go instead of write it in, and kind of made it more I don't know the word. It's kind of like I guess improvisatory. I already said that. But anyways, um, so for like the pad sound, I wanted it to be really full and kind of nice and not just so bricky. So I made the attack longer. I kind of used these LFOs to kind of use the filters, and then the way the stereo spread. So that's like how far in the stereo width it's kind of going. So I want it to be really full, so it has a pretty high spread, but it kind of varies with the sine wave, and it triggers like every for every 2 measures in the piece. So it will kind of go up and down and kind of go through space in that way, in sort of a 3D way. And then using the filters, it kind of just subtly changes the sound, makes it a little bit brighter or less bright as it goes on this kind of sine wave. So yeah, I liked that. And then in the beginning, I wanted it to have a more fuller sound. So with the celeste and even alto flute, it's pretty high. They're higher instruments. So I wanted it to feel very full and expansive in the beginning. So I added a little bass line to it that was not in the score. So I added, it's kind of like a sawtooth kind of square with these little pulses in the middle, kind of bass pad sound. And I kind of layered that in kind of low. So when it drops out, it just feels brighter and more metallic when it drops out, but it's not so noticeable where it's like, oh, where did the bass go? In like kind of a stark kind of way, in that way. And then also kind of playing with space again with the sound. So I have like the alto flute. I recorded it all in mono, but I have that right in the center of the mix. And then I took the little flute parts that I overdubbed that are an octave higher, and I placed those just a little bit right of center, left of center, and then those are stereo, kind of created stereo by copying and pasting. but it kind of gives it an interesting mid-side EQ. It's not exactly mid-side EQ, but um, because of the ranges of the instruments and the timbres, it kind of creates that kind of effect where we hear like the one alto flute sound in the center, and then towards the sides we get different colors coming in, and kind of like that. So that was kind of my idea for that, and I think it gives it a better and more focused stereo width. And when the little other flute parts come in, they're panned at different points, so you can kind of hear the sound traveling through space in that way. Space. uh, for the Celeste, I wanted it to sound like a Celeste, but I wanted it to be very more retro, and it kind of gives that retro sound. So when I was listening to a bunch of different Celeste, it kind of had like a rounder sound, but it's not completely round. So I kind of morphed it with this like kind of phase dipping, and you can kind of see that. I'm gonna undo that, but it kind of shapes the waveform. And then I did some other little like spectralish techniques where with the velocity, every time like the key is pressed harder, so if you were gonna like play the piano and press it harder, it might sound louder, it might sound kind of a different timbre if you like kind of bang the key versus kind of lightly tap the key. So by using like the velocity kind of parameter here, I can map it to different effects. So right here I have like a harmonic stretch, so if I just like kind of, it's already soloed, so if I and then you can see the waveform kind of stretches and like kind of contracts, and adding different kind of harmonics there, where the harmonics are in time, so it kind of shapes it in a more interesting way so it doesn't sound so static. Also, I have a little bit of like this kind of river white noise sound, kind of very at a very very low level, so you can't hear the noise, but it adds a little bit of random variability to the sound, like you might hear in real life, like a real acoustic sound. So it makes it less cold and electronic, and it kind of gives it some interest and warmth to the ear, even if we're not like consciously experiencing it. We can, our ears pick up that kind of noise and stuff. Here I have like just a little bit of random like FM synthesis, so it's kind of taking this wave and kind of morphing it to this one, the frequencies. So it is smoothing it out a little bit, but it's just a little bit, and it's random, so it's not actually mapped to anything in particular. It's just happening kind of randomly, and to kind of give it a little bit of variability in that way. And then there's also like a glide, so the more harder you press on the keys, it kind of glides up. It'll kind of swoop up in this kind of slope. You can change the slope and everything to make it a different kind of glide. And undo. So yeah, that's kind of what I did there. And then also to add a little bit of like kind of not, well, a little bit of timbre. I would say it's more of a timbral sound. I added a little bit of, where is it? Toy piano. It's somewhere. I think it's right here. So it's detuned a little bit with the different oscillators here. This is just kind of Ableton's bass toy piano, but it kind of detunes it, and the farther in the range it is, so the more extremes of the range of the sound, there's more detuning. So it sounds kind of wacky, like right here. Stop. So yeah, so it kind of adds a little bit of detune to the sound, and gives it an interesting timbre. Rather, it's mixed pretty low, so it's giving it more of a color versus kind of a microtone sort of sound. I mean, 12 cents isn't like so much. It's more of just sounds, I guess, out of tune, but it's mixed kind of low, so it's kind of blending with this sound. Also, to blend and kind of give each little moment a little bit of highlight, I added some, this is a harp, a little bit of harp. It's east-west harp MIDI sound, but it sounds pretty good, in my opinion. So I can't play it here because I don't have it on this computer, but basically I'm adding a little pops of color to the Celeste part, and kind of doubling it in different octaves, same octave sometime, depending on like how I wanted it to sound. But it's making it a little bit fuller. It's adding a little bit of that kind of plucking noise in the beginning of the sound too, so it gives it a little bit of warmth too, in my opinion. Yeah, that's pretty much what I did. To the sounds, obviously, lots of filters. We have like some delays that are automated to play at certain points in the track. We have like a really great reverb, so I kind of changed that through time. So in like the Celeste part, for example, like I might have like this mix. I'll change the mix, how damp or wet it is. So like as it decays, when you hear things through space, you kind of hear them more wet, and you can kind of not hear the dry signal as much. So to kind of make it more depth, make it more depthful. When I kind of decrescendo, I increase the mix, or vice versa. If it's coming more into the foreground, I can lower the mix depending on uh, how I like to shape the sound, and that goes for pretty much all the instruments. I also have some like different distortion, so I could change like how distorted I want it to be. For the instruments, I kind of wanted to keep it a little bit more natural, like the integrity of the sound, so you can still hear that it's an alto flute, but just a little bit of some of these like added distortions where it kind of bit crushes it. It kind of gives it a more retro sound, and it blends better with the instruments, the electronic instruments. So that's kind of what I did. Yeah, thanks for watching.